Another DoNotGod.com video presentation. Modern Mystic, some more on the brain. Lots of videos to go through, so I'm going to go through all of them. I'm going to play all of it because you really have a choice. You can either listen or not listen. I mean, it's either interesting or it's not interesting. So, yeah, it's free. And you're free. So, decide as you wish. I'm not trying to spam your box or any of this kind of crap. Well, actually, these videos aren't even going to be in a subscription list, really. Well, at first, anyway. So, really, there's nothing to complain about. You're either interested or you're not.
The reason that we think that we're the writer of the show and not the star of the show is because over the last 10,000 years, people have gone with the story that there was a God and there was souls, and this soul does then develops and attains purity or not.
Right, I know. So, but really these conversations, really aren't conversations you use to debunk religious theories. This isn't the reason why you say there's no God, is because you understand how brains are reflexive organisms and that we're completely conditioned and that we are not truly creative, that we're just a byproduct of our environment. If our environment nurtures us, if our environment forces us to learn something. Look, Tiger Woods was created, okay? He just didn't fall into his role. He was created into his role. Like all of us, we're created into the role by mechanisms that are both intentional and unintentional. People try to manipulate us and fail. People try to manipulate us and succeed. Probably very few of those. And the world itself just happens to us. Our pet gets run over in the street, and we are changed through that process. That's all there is. God doesn't have anything to do with it. Religion doesn't have anything to do with it. That's a whole separate argument, pretty much, because there's nothing. The causes that will make people gravitate to those fantasy beliefs have nothing to do with understanding brain physics.
Or whatever the story is in the religion. And yes, it's in there in the legal system. It's shot through all our speech.
So the legal system, again, he's sort of implying that the legal system exists to punish for no good reason, just to punish as revenge, like somehow make them suffer for what they did, when the whole point of making them suffer for what they did is to create deterrence from somebody else doing it. If the legal system could prove that it doesn't provide any deterrence value, I would say it could obviously prove that I myself will admit I would commit a lot of crimes if I knew I wasn't going to be held accountable and punished and tortured, or in some way the quality of my life will be substantially degraded. If that wasn't a certain message sent by the justice system, I would commit lots of things that are now called crimes. I would do a lot of my own justice. Yes, I would.
Obviously, because most all the speech has been invented in the last 10,000 years. It's there. It's there in all of our stories, in all of our thoughts. Yes, it makes a huge difference that we think that we're a soul, the writer.
Oh, so again, it really isn't the gist of the argument. The real problem with people's perception is they are looking at it as what's in it for me, rather than understanding that what's in it for you has to be understood in a world that's a multiplayer game. That it's not you is not the only you. Me is not the only me. And I can't logically ignore the other things that are equally as valuable as I am in my interactions doing anything. What's in it for me won't give me the only answer that matters. What's in it for the rest of the human race is also equally important, at least. I would say obviously it's more important. That our obligations not to degrade the quality of life of many other people to gain our gratification is a substantial consideration in existence.
And the free will manipulator of the world. It makes a huge difference. And so, yes, it would make a huge difference if the real, and it will come, I'm sure, because you can't be this wrong for generation after generation. This is why I say the academics can keep it going for 1, 2, maybe even 3 generations, and standing in the middle of the road going, it's an illusion. But that sort of wankiness cannot stand in.
So again, there's just no point in calling that wankiness, because it is a critical truth to understanding what we're doing here, what our function is, that we are just robots, and that programming is everything. That if we want the human race to have better humans in it, we have to program them to be better humans. We can't just have this laissez-faire attitude that, yes, just throw the child on a pile of ice cream cones and everything will be just fine. We don't have to add anything. We just have to feed it, and that's all we have to do. That's the only consideration. Just feed it, and it'll be just fine. Bullshit.
This fast-paced society in which we live in, and it will catch up, and I will be proved to be right in,
So whatever that means, proved to be right about what? An argument 900 million other people are making, that it's determinism, that your brain is the source of all of it. It's creating the entire theater. I mean, every tapestry on the wall, like I said, the whole thing is just a creation inside the brain. Now, calling it an illusion is a little tricky, just because it is physically made of something. There's physical neurons that create my consciousness. And I could take out a whole portion of my brain. I could take away all kinds of memories, all kinds of pieces. I could reduce it to whatever the functional part is that's necessary. The neurons, the minimum neurons necessary to create a moment of experience. And if that was floating around in space, that's what it is. It is consciousness. It's an arrangement of matter that creates a theater of consciousness. I mean, see, that's what we should be striving for, is maybe more perfect words. I mean, the idea of a theater is a good analogy, but is that a perfect way to describe what the shape of the illusion is?
Talk. And there will be a change. It's not that we are naturally, I thought in the beginning we were naturally, genetically predisposed to think that we were the writer of the story. I don't know that's so much true now. There will be.
Yeah, so I this whole genetically predisposed, when we can see what we're genetically predisposed to do is go goo goo gaga, blah 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 blah. We have no genetic predisposition of any meaningful relevance. You can train a human being to be any kind of animal you wish. Okay, you can make a human think he's a platypus. I mean, there's just nothing you can't fuck up in a brain, where the rules are written. There's just so little, beyond the mechanical instincts, there's just so little of us that isn't completely dependent on what you do to it once it's breathing.
A lot to it, probably. But I think that on the nature-nurture part of are we the writer or the star, I think an awful lot of it will be actually nurture and not nature. It won't all be genetically. We'll have the feeling of that we are the ones doing things, obviously. But the...
Well, exactly. So, I mean, look, if we were told, if this conversation was something I could have been exposed to when I was 7 years old, if I could have understood that I was just a brain, and I could have, it would have made things so much easier in terms of dealing with what I was sensing and the sensing flood. You'd have some appreciation for the flood, and you'd have some appreciation for why other people are different than you, and why there is all this conflict, and why none of it's really understand. Why is that guy wearing baggy pants? I mean, doesn't he know that looks like shit? I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, all of those questions would be answered, and you could coherently navigate the world so much better because you would have this knowledge of why things are the way they are. So it'd be a huge advantage in terms of your function, how you train yourself through your life, how the world trained you would be completely different, because now you would understand that, oh, it's my reactions. That's what I can control. I can't control their actions. I can only control my reactions. They're the only part my brain has that has any responsibility for. It can't change the world. It can only change what I do. Only what I do is at stake with all this crap that's going on in my brain. The only thing at stake is, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? What is going to be my reaction? That's how I change the world, is by acting. That's it. I don't have any other mechanism. I can't imagine it away. I have to understand it away.
No, I think the story will make a huge difference. It would be like, you're not a soul anymore. There's no God anymore. It makes a huge difference to society. And society is what we live in, and society is what we act in. And society, you want to kill somebody, you can't because society says you can't. Society is so important, it really is. And if society...
So let's understand that I would replace the word society with the word culture. And understand that a culture is just a set of notions, okay, of how you create functional structure. And part of the function, is words like justice and, words like fairness, but those are the words they don't get right at all. Okay, so it just, the priority really becomes some sort of survivability rather than some sort of advancement. So they get stuck just saying we just need to survive as a culture rather than we need to advance as a culture.
It completely flopped over to, let's say, well, I've got no way of other saying it, but what I'm saying, it would make a huge, huge difference. Yes, I think it really would matter in that use of the word matter. Yeah, things would definitely change, whether for bad.
See, that's so he'll get into this conversation about the fact that we do have this power, that changing people's minds is something words can do. The conversation can be important. And just a minute ago, he's saying, the people arguing this are somehow just dogs barking in the road or something. That somehow they're not doing anything to attempt to create that change. When, of course, they are. And they write eloquently, and some of them speak very eloquently on the subject. All of that's really important to changing the civilization, changing the democracy, so that you get more people to understand how very important all of this social engineering thing is. How that's what we're doing right now. We're engineering the future. And every lever we pull and every reflex we have is going to do something to that future.
It would change for the better or worse. Who knows? Because there are so many other factors to be taken into account. You could ask, and I would actually answer I think I could answer the story. Has religion and the idea of the fact that the people, each individual is a soul, so you've got God invented as a story, and the soul invented...
So again, he still thinks, I guess, maybe through some personal experience, I don't know what, that some of these people actually believe this religious crap, that they actually are invested in it. When, the vast majority of the evidence shows they will compromise these religious norms any chance they get. I mean, they really don't see God watching them as they sleep with somebody else's wife, where they lie to their spouses, where they do all this crap. So they obviously don't have any real appreciation that this means anything. And the only time it means something is when they want something from the God. Then all of a sudden they're devotees. But they're not so devoted when they don't need anything from God. When they don't need God to get them out of trouble, God's irrelevant. And that's sort of the evidence.
It is the story, and the soul is you that can make the difference. The choice between good and evil, the angel and the devil. Has that made society better over the last 10,000 years? I would say, besides the obvious thing of what do you mean by better, yes, I think...
So again, and I'll make exactly the opposite argument. The laughably silly religion of Rome, the original gods, were a joke. Okay, they weren't anything to pay attention to. And that was the perfect religion, because it was just a silly story. It didn't mean anything to anybody. It wasn't important. It was just garbage. And it's when they became Christians and were obligated by 10 Commandments and all of this crap, that's when religion failed, and that's when Rome failed. So to me, it's totally a poison to rational civilization, because the objective is too moronic. God doesn't have any sensible direction you're supposed to head. God doesn't give you one. It just says, don't lick your ass. It tells you things that are just almost so stupidly obvious that what value could it possibly have? I mean, how depraved does a child's upbringing have to be for it not to have been told sometime that, look, if I steal your shit, you don't like it, right? Well, yeah, you can't steal other people's shit because they don't like it either, shithead. I mean, if I smack you in the head, you don't like it, right? Well, yeah, don't go around smacking other people in the head. Stupid. I mean, how depraved does your upbringing have to be that you can't get the morality of religion? I mean, the basic moralities. Do unto others as you'd have others do unto you. I mean, fuck. I mean, am I really saying it's that statement is somehow miles above 2 plus 2 equals 4? No, it really isn't, right? It's about the same as 2 plus 2 equals 4. You know, if you put it on a test, yeah, it's about the same. I mean, if you can't, the concept is so basic. So bullshit religion has any value. Bullshit it's done human beings any good. It's been an excuse to slaughter them and to pretend you have created civilization because you posted something on the wall, your little 10 commandments, but you didn't give them any consideration. You didn't understand them as logical edicts. You thought of them as some sort of moral edict.
You'll get it from the Will Stores books that it has been a drive for improvement. And there's a book.
So again, no, that's not in the Bible. So I'm just saying that the Bible has nothing to do with improving anything. It almost is anti-technology, anti-advancement, anti-understanding, anti the tree of knowledge. So, again, I'd say you have this one backwards again. You're just placating the religious folks. You're just, this is just some sort of smooze you're spreading to say, oh, you aren't all that bad. Come a few more steps into being logical, but you're really not bad folk. When they're duplicitous hypocrites. Call them what they are, assholes. And it's time to stop being an asshole.
I've started 2 books at the same time. There's another one, something about happiness. Yes, and this is why in past videos I've said for most people I would recommend religion, because I think it makes the human entity happier, more gut reading.
All right, so again, it doesn't have anything to do with how you interact with your civilization. It just has to do with how you feel. So again, this is the worst medicine you could be serving up, is this notion that your first objective is to do no harm to the rest of the world. That's your first objective as a robot. Being happy, that's the second objective. The first objective is you have to be efficient in your function in the world. And that's it. Because that's the equal proportion of your value is your action. What you cause, the effects you cause, are just as important inside as they are on the outside. The force going that way is the same as, is equally important to the force going inward. So if you're causing more harm in the world, you have to count that as your own harm.
The actions will be heady lightness as opposed to twisted gut heaviness. If you're religious and you think that you're a soul, God-given soul, and you will go to heaven, etc., and you're going somewhere, it's the whole idea.
Yeah, and then you'll have babies, and you'll do all kinds of other investments in nonsense, and you'll harp on your kids to have grandkids, or you do some other nonsense that doesn't do anybody any good at all, that just creates more harm, more fake credit card spending, more horseshit more investment in nonsense because you couldn't endure being serious for a minute, taking your life seriously, taking your interaction seriously. Live a delusion. He's just selling heroin, overtly saying to these people, just smoke the opium. It'll make you happy. Won't do the world any good. And in the end, it won't do you any good.
Think Hindu or Buddhist as well, that you're on a great road to perfection or something, or Christian, you're on a great road to, or Muslim, you're on a great road to heaven to sit on God's right hand or something. That's the sort of thing a human brain absolutely loves. So yes.
And again, but overtly in the religions are things like it has nothing to do with your deeds. I mean, the Christian religion is basically saying baptism is more important than what you do in your life. I mean, it's oxymoronically evil as a testament, as a statement about how you should view things. Doesn't matter what you've done. Just convert on your deathbed, and you've resolved all of the problems. You've fixed all your raping. It all went away somehow. It's magically gone. It's a silly story, silly ethics. It's feeling good at an obscenely ugly price.
So that I think 10,000 years is made for happier people. Would mine? Who knows? I don't know. Not interested really. because I can't know. It's not that I don't care. I'd like to know, and I'd like to care, but there's just not enough inputs to know or care.
Yeah, exactly. You don't allow yourself to be challenged. As soon as something's challenging, you run the fuck away. So, the minute you hit a chess player, I guess, who's better than you, you don't bother.
And I've gone to 17 minutes again. Still. So you get the idea. We feel, that's the Kahneman. Fast feeling, that's the feeling. I know by saying things like barking like a dog and telling you that you're not a soul, so you're not.
And insulting anyone who's making an effort to improve the mind of the human race. So Sam Harris is wasting his time. He should be selling religion. I mean, it's a terrible thing for you to be saying.
You're not the old story. You've lived with it all your life. Mummy's told you, everybody's told you, the law's told you, everybody's told you that you basically you are something that has free will and runs this whole show.
So again, I don't know what the percentage is of people watching mystic videos who have that notion in any kind of profound, strong belief. I don't think there's too many fundamentalist religious types listening to his videos. That would be my guess. So this argument is to who? Who are you talking to? Most of the people listening to these videos about how the brain works are already people who know what evolution is. They know, that there is physics not on their side, so to speak, in terms of having any mystical notions of who they are and what they are. And so why is he making this argument that we all should be looking at it from some perspective like we just crawled out of religious quicksand? I crawled out of it, when I was 5 years old. I never crawled in.
And all I'm saying is, you're not that writer. You are actually the star of the show. The brain writes the whole show and puts you in as the star. It's good to be.
No, I don't feel like the star. I feel like the victim. So you can write it your way. I'll say that no. All I feel like is that I'm trapped here. And I have nothing I control. I just have to experience it. I'm obligated to experience.
You're a star, no? The answer is no. It gives you gut-wrenching horrors to know that you're not the writer because you socially have been programmed to think that you are the writer.
See, no, that's not the discouraging part. The discouraging part is that this will continue to take place, that people will keep living in these fake and phony spandex, fake boobed bullshit worlds, that they think it's going to fix a problem when it fixes nothing. It's not a solution. They won't find their happiness. They won't find any of this crap. It's all a horse shit story being relived based on other people's bullshit propaganda. Some notion of purpose when there isn't any.
And you're not. Bye.
Okay, so that was pretty much crap. Alright, the last half really sucked compared to the first half. So we'll go on to the next one. That's, like I said, I'm way behind. It's like 5 videos here, so it's going to be a while. Turn it down a little bit.
Right. Hello again. I did a rare thing, very rare for me. I rewatched the video that I just made called Stars. It's already up. I don't normally watch them again. And I realised that what I...
Strange, because, I watch mine almost obsessively. I mean, I watch every video, and I also learn from them by saying, I could have said that better, and I could have said that better, but... just to do a continuity check, just to see whether I'm impressed by my own phraseology.
Started talking about Bardadude or about Bardadude or the whole Bardadude thing in cognitive dissonance. I never got to the point at all. I did 15 more minutes of talking about other things. The point I was trying to make was that when cognitive dissonance arises in the brain, cognitive dissonance is where stories don't fit. The stories of the past in the brain don't fit with a new story, or new stories, but a new story. They just don't fit. and there's cognitive dissonance, and that goes to the body.
Right. So it's just a fancy way of saying conflict. There's two things. 2 plus 2 equals 4, and then over here it says 2 plus 2 equals 3. Two things don't match, so your brain has to deal with, well, which one is right and which one is wrong, and if there is a wrong one, why is the wrong one in my brain? I mean, the dissonance goes beyond just understanding that the two things are in conflict. Your brain wishes to understand, how did I make this mistake? How did this wrong thing get in this arena of being a puzzle piece? It's like the popcorn is, somehow you put a piece of popcorn in the puzzle, and there's a piece of and you're like, oh, shit, I've got my snack food in my, my science, something like that.
It is felt as a wrongness. It's a physical wrongness manifesting, say, in the gut again, let's say, like we did before, and it comes to the brain, and it is Kahneman-like, fast-thinking wrong. As soon as you get a cognitive dissonance, you feel it as...
Yeah. Well, see, I I don't think there's any cognitive dissonance. There's guilt. There's honor. You feel like you've pride. You lose a little pride because of, you're cheating a little. I'm doing too much. What's in it for me? And I can feel my pride points lowering. So you're just feeling a kind of fuel level of how you're functioning. Am I doing good? Am I doing good? Am I doing good? And there's part of you that's saying you're not doing so good. You put that 3 on there, and that was just cheating, and you just did it because you didn't want to spend the extra, to pay for a 4. You compromised, you cut the corner, you're cheating the game. You're stepping on the gas pedal and you're going, woo, it's fun, and then you're realizing, I'm doing this woo, it's fun thing, and what if somebody jumps in front of the car or something? I won't be able to stop, and I'm taking a risk of killing somebody for no good reason. I don't feel too good about that. Dissonance is constant. Constant. At least in my existence, it's a parrot on my shoulder,
The wrongness. It just rings the bell of wrongness. And it's not just the wrongness, it's the discomfort that's caused the wrongness, and then that wrongness causes a feeling of more discomfort. And what the body then has to get, driven by the brain.
Well, let's understand, this is not a profoundly deep and hard kind of pain. So let's understand that the dissonance is just in your appreciation that I shouldn't have to cut the corners, and I shouldn't have to blah, blah, blah. And the dissonance is over the anguish over, I have to do the extra work, or I have to be a little more patient, or I have to be this, or I have to be that. And it's just like a nag. It's a nag. It's not like cancer.
Is comfort. So the brain tries to jiggle the stories so the cognitive dissonance disappears. And what obviously happens is, seeing this one is closer to the light, these are the old stories, these are the strong old stories. And if a new story comes in and doesn't fit with the old stories, it comes in like this, it jars, it's painful, it's cognitive dissonance, then arguments arise. In the Will Storr books, he harps on this as the people that think that they've been taken up in spaceships and been anally probed or something, and they got together in a room and started an argument of the minutiae of it didn't go this way, but I wasn't anally probed, I was vaginally probed, or something like this, and it made a difference to them, and they started arguing. And a lot of the book, because that's one of the first story lines, is noticing that when the cognitive dissonance comes, something has to give to put an ease back in the body, because the cognitive dissonance has caused dis-ease within the body, or mental turbulence, and that mental turbulence must be dispelled to make the body feel better, to make the brain feel better, to make life.
Right, so they come up with a rationalization, and the easiest one is, well, he's doing it, so now I can do it because he's doing it, right? So, that's the simplest and easy rationalization, is just to say, I can take my accountability away because nobody's judging him. Why should anybody be judging me? If I'm not going to imply impose judgment on them, and I'm not going to put them in. Why should I be imposing it on myself? And so I find an out. I find an excuse. But yes, the opposite also works. That once you've been well trained in understanding your dissidence, you understand that yes, usually my dissidence is for a good cause, and it really just has to do with the fact that I am selfish. That I personally have to feel my pain. I don't have to feel theirs, and so I always tend to think, I have to preserve me first, when I know, geez, I can't defend that logically. And it's a real problem, because the only rationalization to get out of it is, the only way to reason your way out of it is to accept the fact that I'm frail and I suck. And that all I can do is try to suck as little as possible. But it's really hard to not suck any at all. And that's just the truth. But you do have to resolve it to some sense, because you can't just waste your time badgering yourself. That doesn't accomplish anything. Because again, you're getting hit for something. It's like having the hiccups, and somebody's hitting you for having the hiccups. It's like, I can't really not have the hiccups. It's in my nature. I am a scorpion, it's the frog thing. I mean, I'm a snake. I can't undo what I am. I can only try to appropriately label myself and understand that if I'm going to be a bad thing, I might as well be as good a bad thing as I possibly can. But how possible? That's where I'm going to fudge as much as I can, right? I'm going to keep saying, even though I'm not doing very well, that I'm doing as good as I can, and that'll keep the bar raising. It'll keep me in the game. It'll keep me trying, and that's all I can do, is keep trying to do better.
Feel better. So what happens is that generally justifications for the old stories will arise to make the new story that doesn't gel with the old stories go away.
So again, he's still talking as if we're talking to people who believe in free will and we're convincing them out of it. That's not really his audience, but regardless, okay, fine. So it really isn't about, I would argue, the old stories. It's about the fact that you have conditioned yourself to think, I can use these rationalizations. Everyone else is doing it. Well, most black people are assholes, so therefore they're all assholes. You can use these bullshit things to say, okay, this is my excuse for hating them all, because most of them are, or whatever the bullshit is. And then you can know the new idea says, now you really can't do that. You can't build a civilization that way. It's really grotesquely unfair. And you have to work on fixing it. And that fixing it requires you solve, foundational problems. And foundational problems are a bitch, because you got to find out where the gas lines are and the electric lines. You can't dig the hole, and you can't do this, you can't do that. So fixing the foundation is a lot more difficult than fixing the penthouse.
In other words, you know how in your life it does it. Let's say it's one of these classic examples where somebody said something to you, and you've said something back, and they've gone away, and then you go, bastard. You feel insulted, and then it's, I should have said, I should have done, but they've gone. But it's the equivalent, they can still be there, but the brain's trying to think of something to make the situation right, because there is discomfort. There is something arisen that's caused discomfort, and the brain will come up with this, that, the other, another thing, and gets stronger and stronger and stronger in its argumentation to beat this down, because this has to be beaten down to make comfort in the body again, to make the cognitive dissonance go away.
Right. I would agree that this is a problem for adolescents, let's say. But once you gain some maturity in life, it becomes more obvious these patterns, and you recognize that there are patterns to your behavior, and that these patterns are epistemic problems that you really do have to restructure. And so you're not as much in the challenge of moment to moment making yourself feel better. You're more in the challenge of, how do I reorient to my perspective, that general perspective, to be able to trigger better, to not be triggered, to not overreact, to not be hysterical, to not be childish. I mean, it's the word is pretty good. To not be childish, to grow up.
How does the cognitive dissonance go away? This has to be proved to be the bad bacteria. The white cells has got to beat it off. Basically, it's got to be dismissed. It's got to go away. And as soon as it's dismissed, and then the old stories can just sit there, peace and quiet returns to the body. And that's what cognitive dissonance is. And basically, I could go on and say, life is...
And I don't think they get away with that. So you can say that people get away with it, but I don't think they do. I don't think their questioning of their integrity goes away when they commit the crime of assassinating a piece of the truth to get it out of their way. I think that dissidence lives on. And only the most blissfully ignorant, childish of minds are capable of cutting the head off the truth, suffocating it, and feeling okay about that.
Is a process of learning to live with cognitive dissonances. It's childish, let's go that far. It's childish to imagine that your old stories can win all the time. It's childish to live a life of wanting this to be so always dominant that it spends its life just
So again, I don't like exactly the analogy, because he's arguing that some of these traditional ideas aren't well founded and that we shouldn't let go of them. Some things you learn are solid facts, and they shouldn't be compromised either. So it's always just about figuring out which one has the most fact integrity and saying that's the one that should win. I mean, it's that logical. And you can know that some of your sensibilities are completely just conditioned. It's your music because it's your decade. It's your this, it's your, because that's where you got your first kiss and that's what you did. And that's all that is just a little prejudice. And so you can understand the parts where you're gapped. You can make a distinction between, that's just because I'm gapped. I mean, I'm from a different time where a different theme song was playing, and the part where, civilization's going to hell. The part where all of a sudden we can just spend as much money and it doesn't matter. Debt doesn't matter. Where, no, I grew up, you had to have a checkbook, your bank account, you couldn't have a negative in your savings account. Didn't work that way.
coming up with things to beat down these new things, to beat down the 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 new things, to avoid the feeling of cognitive dissonance in the brain, to live with cognitive dissonance. And the only way to live with cognitive dissonance is to live only in a state of cognitive dominance, that you and your stories are always right. Life's just a process of accepting.
Yeah, so I don't think it's at all that black and white for anybody, frankly. I think people have faith in things they might not should have faith in. I would argue the mystic has faith in conventional physics. He thinks they've done a disciplined job of arriving at certain conclusions. I would argue they're just silly. When you really examine them, they're silly conclusions arrived at for silly reasons. It's farcical almost, some of it, how badly evidenced it is. So he has a confidence that they have satisfied, they got their doctorate degrees, they've done their mechanical things, they've put their little ducks in a row, when they really haven't. And so they're giving him testimony on a subject which he isn't professional, and he's accepting the testimony. And that's a huge liability, is that the sheeple nature of a lot of people, the fact that they know they're not qualified to judge, and so they assume that authorities are qualified, that they have done the work, they do understand the subject, when they're fallible and they haven't been scrutinized. No process within their science has filtered out their bad science, kind of a thing. They really don't have credibility. See, medicine, you can say, well, it's credible because they have to test it. But we have found that, they slacken the rules a little bit and things slide through that really weren't tested very well. And then they find out in the real world it doesn't work. And, that's something that really shouldn't happen.
The fact that there are other stories that will not gel with your stories. And it's just experience in life and religion that it's better to live with new stories and accept new stories as a fact of life, as opposed to just trying to think that you've got the right answer.
So it's just silly either way. Accepting new stories blindly or defending your own blindly, both of those are stupid. The real answer is to seek the truth, to qualify what you say, what you believe, your heritage. Qualify the parts of your attachments that have integrity versus the ones that don't have an integrity. You understand the difference between, there's two kids, one's cute, one's ugly. You give more candy to the cute one. Understand, I just committed a huge silliness. The brains inside of those kids aren't, pretty and ugly. Those brains deserve the same thing. And I've cheated it based on a silly notion that somehow the pretty one deserves better.
All the time. But just making sure that I've made the point this time. Cognitive dissonance arises as a feeling in the body that the body very much, or body-brain unit, wants to very much dispel, because it causes dis-ease in the body.
So again, I would argue that for mature humans, they know the dissonance is a message that you got to fix something. And that's all it is. It's a vague message that some kind of work has to be done here. But that's about all it is. It's not that loud. The dissonance isn't that loud until you really do have actual blood on your hands, and then you're stuck with the guilt. So until you've really hurt someone or really done damage to something, you don't feel the dissonance. You feel it a lot louder when it's right in front of your face, where you actually, through your negligence or some other, fault of you paying attention, actually did burn somebody's face off or do something horrible. That dissonance you have to live with forever, and it's got to be just morbidly painful. It's a sad fact of a lot of people's lives. They made a mistake and it cost somebody everything. And that's got to be awful hard to live with. There's soldiers come back from the war, and they know they took a cheap shot here or there, or something like that. The guy's crawling on the ground. I shot him again. He had kids and a wife and a life, and I took it all. I don't know if I really had a right to do it. I don't even know if he was really my enemy. There's a lot, there's a lot of people with stories, a lot of people who live lives, again, where, they sent their wife out to the grocery store and she got run over, for a beer. I wanted a beer, and I killed her for it. That dissonance, no, that doesn't just fly away, No.
The brain unit. And the body-brain unit does not like to be in dis-ease, it wants to be in ease. So it will come up with a life experience process of how to get that ease back again. Some people have developed it where they will not settle until they've beaten off the new ideas, or the ideas. Like the first example in the Will Storr book is the Mackay that believes that the Bible is the actual word of God and the earth is 6,000 years old.
He doesn't believe any of that crap. He just believes that the religion, that the notion that God is an authority telling you can't do things is good for people. That without God, they somehow will not recognize any obligations to be good, because they cannot recognize that other people are entitled to exactly what they're entitled to. That I have to earn my food on this planet. I can't steal it. that they somehow won't be able to understand, do unto others as you'd have others do unto you, as just logic, as just the same thing as saying judge a man based on the content of his character, not the color of his skin. That it's just a logical statement about what the factual reality is. And so they think we can't know the simple truth without a God enforcing it. And that's their dismal failure as humans. They have so little respect for humanity that they will fabricate a fake and phony narrative to get them to behave a certain way, when they know themselves that's not why they behave that way. They know themselves why they don't wish to be humiliated by being found to be a criminal, why they worry about their reputation, or why they do any of that stuff. And they don't do it because they fear God's wrath. They do it because they fear society's wrath.
Max, finished. No, that's it. That's the story. That is it. Anything that comes from geological science or any sort of argumentation that comes up to this, Mackay will beat down these things, so the Mackay body-brain unit can return to a feeling of ease.
Well, again, the only thing they're feeling at ease about is social control, and that they've done their job to keep people in their place. Not that they've enlightened them or educated them, but that they have instilled in them some impediment to corruption, which is as weak as their own devotion, and which will fail dismally to control behavior.
Basically, this is a horrid way to live life, and lots of writings and thinkings and things in life are ways to say, oh, don't live your life like that. It's a pathetic way to live your life. It's just not an actually easy way. You know, you do get your ease, but there's lots of people that think you're either, well, somewhere on the scale between a nutter and a wanker.
Oh, except for the devotees who think you're God, you know, a disciple. So to argue that they aren't feeding on the fact that they can dupe so many people and get an audience, you know, don't kid yourself. That's good enough.
But you do get your ease because you think you've got the superior, better argument. It's a balance. You can be a nutter wanker with the ease of knowing that your story is right. That you were anally probed, not vaginally probed. And it's...
So again, he's mocking again, as if all these conversations are about nothing. The difference between God and evolution is gigantic. It's a huge perceptual difference. Understanding our origin as, you know, evolving from chemistry on this planet is a huge difference between and believing in God. Gigantic difference in accuracy and in what it'll make you as a human being. Just a gigantic difference. And to call all that barking is just bullshit. To call that the difference between anal probing and vaginal probing is bullshit. It's a huge difference in terms of the truth value.
But it is just the way that the way life works out for people. Some people will go with this I must be right all the time sort of thing to keep the body in ease, to keep cognitive dissonance away, to keep it crushed down. Delicate souls.
Well, I'd say you're one of those. So again, that's just kind of funny because I think you're very conscious of saying something inaccurate or wrong. And you're likewise very sensitive to any criticism. So, you know, wanker.
Okay, that's what I wanted to say. Bye.
All right, so that's probably enough. I don't know if the other one, maybe it's a 2-minute video, maybe we'll kill it. What is it? 9 minutes. No, that's this one. This one might be fast. Let's see. Yeah, 3 minutes. All right, we'll do it. Play.
Boom, boom, boom. Boom. Hello. It's like the old days, making 3 videos in one day. it looks bright out there, but it's raining, and the next job I really need to do is outside, and I don't feel like it, so you get more videos. I just wanted to make sure you didn't get the idea that cognitive dissonance...
So only one comment on the other video, and there's 11 on this one. Yeah. So it's always one idiot, 4 comments by one person or something. Okay, well, we have some replies. But yeah, these are great account names. D. Holy shit. All right, anyway.
Is just for freaks and nutters and people with childish dispositions. It's for you, me, everybody, all day long in lots of different things. All sorts of different things. I mean, the one I've just thought of as an example is you think Jane's quite nice, but then somebody says to you, oh, that Jane's a bit of a bitch. Cognitive dissonance. That's it. It comes all day long. You like Marmite, somebody says Marmite's horrible. Cognitive dissonance. It's just all day long we have this cognitive dissonance, and it always feels wrong and bad.
Yeah, well, and it's always there in terms of the other forms of it, which is you just have a memory of, I didn't say goodbye, when somebody died, or all the little unfinished business of life just haunts constantly. It pops into your awareness every now and then just to give you a downer. It's it's unfortunate, but yes, we're just perpetually harassed by our failures. I am, at least.
And the brain always wants to make it better. For all things, for Marmite, for Jane, for whether the Earth is 6,000 years old or not, all of these things, they're all small, let's face it. All these small things create cognitive dissonance, which is painful. It just feels wrong.
See, I think they're giant things, and we have small feelings about them. That's the problem. The dissonance we have about the future, the unsustainability, global warming, all kinds of different things, and we turn them into almost nothing as, well, it got nothing to do with me, I can't do anything, blah, blah. And we just write all this stuff off. So there's a ton of stuff that should have profound dissonance. We should be really, really terrified or upset or afraid, and we're, whatever. So it works both ways. We have too much dissonance about stuff that's bullshit, and too little dissonance about stuff that's really fucking important.
So the brain wants to make it feel right, and it has different techniques for making it feel right. So somebody says Jane's a bitch when you think Jane's really a cool cat. What you do depends. Probably you think that then the person that says Jane's a bitch is a bitch, or whatever. It will sort the cognitive dissonance out to make you feel better, to make the body feel better to the brain. It's just what will happen, and it's happening all the time.
No, your brain's going to resolve. It's going to, and you learn as an adult or as a smart person to resolve right, to be a judge and say guilty, innocent, guilty, innocent, guilty, innocent, right, wrong, whatever. You become a disciplined and responsible judge, and you dispense with justice. You do justice to the ideas. If the idea is silly and wacky, UFOs, okay, I've dispensed with that. So until you can make your story out of something real, yes, forget it. So all the stories don't have a real component. They don't have any evidence. Yeah, forget it. Dissonance solves. You're an idiot. Prove it. You're an idiot. Prove it, or you're an idiot. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
Democrats, Brexit, Trump, Jane, Marmite, all day long, all sorts of things. The brain is dealing with this. And this is why it uses the Kahneman quick technique of getting rid of it, just how you feel about it. And it's all just on feelings. Yeah, because it's happening so often.
All right, so this is more what? Meditation, horse crap or something. Better life through ignoring it. Don't pay attention. Life isn't about living. It's about ignoring living.
Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Cognitive dissonance sounds technical and difficult and something that somebody might have over there somewhere. But no, it's you all day long.
A responsibility to make judgments is you all day long. Every day you have to make judgments. Should I go out? Or should I wait 15 minutes? Or should I do this? Should I do that? And every one of those decisions has consequences, and if you do something too late, or you do something too soon, or you do something that always fucks it all up, and blah, 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 blah. And it'd be really nice if we could all choose exactly the right choices and have all kinds of empirical knowledge to know exactly what everything is. But I mean, for 80% of our judgments, the judgments are going to be pretty much reliable because we have all banged into trees and we've all walked around corners and we all know what cheating looks like and we all know what this is. I mean, so all 90% of them, 80% of them are going to be easy, because 80% of them are going to be something very solid against something very stupid. Okay. So, that's enough of a video and such. So, I do appreciate the Mystic making videos. I'm glad he does it. I'm not too happy that he is so intractably uncommunicative in any kind of responsible way. We obviously speak a bit of a different language. Although we are from exactly the same generation, you know, he's European, I'm American. You know, I'm from Jersey. You know, he's from whatever, Hightown or something. I grew up streety. He didn't. You know, I grew up in nature. He didn't, maybe. So, yeah, I'm a little more of an animal. I speak a little bit different language. But that really shouldn't be some intractable problem. He should accept the New World Order, accept a little bit of diversity in who he has to communicate with. I don't wear his hats. You know, I wear my hats. Okay. And so, you know, he's got to be willing to play the game a little fairer. Because there is nobody else, frankly. I mean, I wish there was some other party who would engage in these conversations, and they'd have to do it in the context of us having gone through the minutia, you know, the bits of the conversation, you know, all the little bits. So they'd have to have listened to all those videos and be able to make some sort of useful contribution to advancing the conversation, because it's not going to advance if you don't have anything to interact with, frankly, except people who are well below, okay, the context of the conversation. That's my argument to you. If you want your videos to be better, they need to account for the arguments, the relevant arguments being made. But anyway, there's little chance he heard that speech, so unfortunately there's little use to it. But maybe some of his listeners can paraphrase some of the points made and present them to him for interaction. That there's more to life than just being happy. There's your obligation to the world you live in. It'd be nice if one of you suggests that to him. Yeah, and see what his reaction is. Okay, so anyway, enough of a video. So, till the next time, and, you know, he's got 3 more today, so I'll do them tomorrow, maybe. Or later. So this has been a DoNotGod.com video presentation.